Okay. So
Okay.
what I want to look at this morning is something that we never really we don't often think about, and that is the birth of Dinah. So Dinah is one of the is the only one of the children of Yaakov that is a woman. That's a girl, and it's interesting to understand what happened and why it happened, and how Chazal understand it that it happened. So the Torah says, if you remember, we spoke about the birth of Yisachar through Leah because of the switch that of the Dudaim, and then Leah gives has another child who's Zvulun. She now has 6 boys, so she has half of the Shvatim, and it's clear that Yaakov, the way Rashi explains to us, that Yaakov understood that he was going to have 12 sons. So she's now given 6 boys. He must have told his wives. And then the Torah says, and after she gave him a daughter, or she bore him a daughter, and she called his name Dinah. Sorry, she called her name Dinah. So Rashi says, let's try to understand that why would she call her name Dinah, number one. And number two, all other times that any of the children have been born, they always explain why their name is called that name. There's whoever it is, be it Leah or Rachel, whoever it is, they always explain. They're calling this person their name because of a specific reason. But when it comes to Dinah, there's no explanation. And so therefore, the Rashi tries to understand what's going on. The Rashi says, Chazal explained, Shedana Leah din ba'atzma, that Leah dana din ba'atzma. She had a certain introspective judgment on herself. And this is what she did. So she considered what was happening. She was pregnant. And she has this introspective judgment. And she says, Im zeh zachar, if this one is a zachar, if this one is a male, like all the others have been, so the likelihood that it is going to be a male, then there's something's going to be a terrible thing is going to happen. What's the terrible thing that's going to happen? The terrible thing that's going to happen is that Leah will not, Rachel, who is who's her sister, who's the one who's a primary wife, let's call it, as opposed to Bilhah and Zilpah. So Rachel will not be even as one of the shvachot, even as one of these maidservants. Now, why is that so important? If you remember, we go back all the way to the time of Avram and Sarah, where Sarah can't have children, and then she gives Hagar over to Avram, and Hagar starts behaving in an inappropriate way towards Sarah because of the fact that she's fallen pregnant and Sarah couldn't fall pregnant. So therefore, Leah is concerned that there'll be a similar experience for her sister Rachel. And understanding all of this, that Rachel has done so much for Leah, that there's always this sense of what seems to be a debt that Leah has for Rachel, that she understands that if it wasn't for what Rachel did, she would not be in the position that she's in, and therefore she's always looking out for it. So what does she do? She recognized that her sister will be just like not even like one of the shvachot, and therefore hitpalela alav v'nepach lenekeva. And therefore, so the Gemara tells us that she davened that this embryo that was busy growing inside her should not be a male, but rather than it should become a nekeva, it should become a girl. So she does this. The reason why she calls her Dinah is because she did the reflecting judgment. So hold on a second, how will it be if I have 7 boys and my sister will only have 1? Okay, so that's the way Rashi wants to explain it. Excuse me, according to Chazal, there are a lot of questions on this pasuk, and the major question that comes in this pasuk really is not so much the name, but it says Va'achar yalda bat. Va'achar yalda bat. Afterwards, she bore a daughter. All the other times that one of the children are born to Leah, to Bilhah, to Zilpah, to any of them, it always says vatar, that she fell pregnant. So the Chizkuni points out, and he says, Anksiv Bahirayon. Here we don't see that there's the indication that she fell pregnant. And therefore, this girl, Dinah, was a twin to Zvulun. And so therefore, according to this, it's not necessarily the way he wants to say it, that it's necessarily the fact that it was another boy, but she recognized that it was just a girl who was a twin. But then he says davar acher, and he says, let me understand another way how to understand it. Lakach ein ksiv b'hirayon. The reason why it doesn't say that she fell pregnant, lefi shelo hayet tabat ela b'shas leida aval kol zman hirayon hasabed. Exactly what Rashi said, that while she was pregnant, it was actually a male, and it was only on the birth of the child that the child comes out as a female. Now, what is amazing that the Chizkuni points out at this point in time is that if this is the case, that there was this male inside Leah, that Leah didn't want to have as a male, but rather wanted that male, so to speak, to belong to Rachel. So the question is, who is that male? Who did this Dinah, who is the woman, who does she come from? Who does she replace? So the Chizkuni says it's very simple. V'hechlif Yosef bedina. Says Yosef is the male, because Yosef would have been the next child who would have been born. He's the one that should have been born to Rachel. Leah davens that she's not going to have the male, she's going to have the female. So she's going to have the female, not the male. Therefore, it turns out that that the child that she was going to have was actually Yosef, which is a fascinating reflection of the Chizkuni, because when we see who Yosef is and where his relationships are and how Yosef pans himself out, you can see that there is a certain level of tension with Yosef, and mainly the sons of Leah. Not so much as, yes, he would scoff at the children of Zilpah and Bilhah, and that's how it says at the beginning of Parshat Toldot. But there's a certain tension, especially with Ruvain, and especially with Yehuda, who are the children of Leah, and Yosef is the child of Rachel, and it's going to come out a little bit time, and there's lots to discuss on that, but now is not the time. So there are others who look at other things, who look at other ways of understanding. The Tur also explains that this whole thing changes. What he says is that at this point in time, that Ne'emar Bahirayon, the Ikar Hirayon lo haya ela mirachel, says that in actual fact the pregnancy actually was in Rachel, that she was appropriate for her to have this girl. But Leah davened that Rachel, says the Torah Aruch, that Rachel should not have the child that she was pregnant with, because if she had that child, it would have been a girl. Then what would have happened is she would have been seen even less in the eyes of the shvachot, because they all have boys and she had a girl. And it's no offense, I'm just telling you what he says. And therefore he says that she never fell pregnant in the normal way. It was miraculous pregnancy, that she felt that the pregnancy moved from the womb of Rachel to the womb of Leah, which is quite it's quite a thing to say, and not really sure what to do with that.
Eva, can I ask you something? Was it a type of like surrogacy that she carried? Could it have been?
I think maybe that's how we would see it today, but she's not saying what the Torah Aruch is saying is that she was pregnant. Rachel was actually pregnant, and then somehow Leah became pregnant because she davened that Rachel wouldn't have a girl, because the girl would put her into a negative position.
So it was still like physiologically they were pregnant.
Yeah, that's how he wants.
Okay,
That's
wow.
why you understand. I mean, I don't really understand it, but I just thought I would bring it through
Amazing.
because.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's carry on. So now it's after that she has this daughter Dinah. Then the Torah says, "Vayizkor Elohim et Rachel, vayishma eleha Elohim, vayiftach et Rachma." And Hakadosh Baruch Hu heard what? Well, he remembered Rachel, vayishma eleha, and he hears her. Vayiftach et Rachma, and he opens up her womb, and that's why it's a little bit difficult to say that she had this child from before. But either way, so what is it that HaKadosh Baruch Hu suddenly remembers Rachel? So Rashi says that there's this like a string that runs through all of these stories. Zachar la shemasra simanei la achoisa. She remembered that, so Hashem remembered that she had given those simanim to her sister. Why? Because she remembered that she was so worried that she would fall into the clutches of Esau. And now Rachel is worried, because Rachel is worried that she doesn't have children, and we know that the halacha is on a kind of meta halachic level. If a person doesn't have children after 10 years, so then there's the halacha says that one can divorce, and it's a terrible experience. But either way, here comes the story. She's worried that Yaakov will divorce her, and then if that's going to be the case, then Esav will take her. And Esav also thinks, oh, what an opportunity. He has that Rachel doesn't have any children. Therefore, what? So he's saying, I'm going to take this opportunity. Yaakov is going to divorce, and then I will take her because that's the appropriate thing. I'm the son of Yitzchak. She's the daughter of Lavan. So we can work this whole thing together. And that's what it's going to be. So what is Vayiskor Elohim es Rachel? Vayishma Elea Elohim. It's a similar space of the what we speak about with Bnei Yisrael and Mitzrayim. She was in such a difficult experience, and I often wonder when I read this, when we speak about Mitzrayim, we speak about our personal Meitzarim, our personal straits, our personal constraints in keeping us from being who we have to be. And that's what Yetziat Mitzrayim is, not only Am Yisrael, but on a personal level, we also got to come out of our Meitzarim. And I often think about this, that Rachel is going through the most terrible trauma at this time. She doesn't know what to do. She can't have children. She's seeing all these things happening outside. She's seeing that in actual, what could be is that what should have been the greatest relationship, where she's understanding it, in the world is falling apart because she doesn't have any of those shvatim that she needs to be. And that is the thing that prompts her to give the most powerful tefillah. And it's in that which HaKadosh Baruch Hu hears this incredible tefillah, Vayiftach et Rachma, and he opens up her womb. And that's what the Netziv says, Harbe tefillah osa. She davened like you cannot imagine. She davened like she'd never davened before. And if you remember, what's interesting is that earlier on, she says to Yaakov that you're not davening for me. She says, Rachel approaches Yaakov and she says to Vatera Rachel ki lo yalda li Yaakov, vatakane Rachel bachosa, vatomer el Yaakov. She said to Yaakov, Avali banim, vim ein meisa anochi. She says, give me children. And Yaakov was cross with her, and he says to her, Vayomer atachat Elohim anochi, Hashem manami mech priveten. Am I under Hashem? Using the same name of Elohim that heard her later on, that I'm denying you the fruit of the womb. In other words, it's not me. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You have to daven for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And most fascinating is that we don't have that same engagement that Yitzchak and Rivka have in the way that they daven for they daven for each other and all of that. It just doesn't happen the same way. There's much more of a give and take, and really Yaakov is teaching her the most important thing, and the most important thing in this case for her is tefillah. And so we see the story that Leah has these 6 children, and then she has this daughter, and she has this daughter because she wants to protect Rachel, and Rachel feels maybe not so protected, but rather she feels so vulnerable because she has nothing. And it's in that space of vulnerability. He remembered Vayishma Elah, and he listens to it something, because sometimes it's only in that space of ultimate vulnerability that we really are able to push out what our real heartfelt prayers are. And that's when he says, opens up a womb, and then she has the first son, who is Yosef. Let's stop there.